Before you get into the real estate market, get clarity, perspective, and the information you need.
I've been listening to you, and I love your show.
Right here with broker owner Dan Gemis, host of the Dan Gemis Real Estate Show.
Okay, welcome back. Dan Gemis with you here at 12:52 on AM 800. Matt Alita in studio today. And what do you say we give away the gift card, Matt?
Let's do it.
Why don't you press the button and see what comes up?
Okay.
The winner for the $50 gift card for the Richmond Popcorn Company today is
Darlene Snyder.
Darlene. Hey, Darlene Snyder from Georgie's out in Harrow. Love Georgie's. If you haven't gone, check out Georgie's restaurant out in Harrow. There you go, Dar. Congratulations. Producer Ben will be in touch with the details on how to collect that gift card. Okay, so let's get to some of these listener questions, Matt. One of them that came in is it possible to find a house under $200,000 anymore? Well, it's challenging. Right, Matt? I think it's challenging.
Yeah.
In fact, I have some stats here. Let's see here before we get too far. So, I've got the price breakdown. So we've had about 4,900 sales across Windsor-Essex County.
For 2023,
residential sales this past year, for the whole year. Let me see here. Under $100,000, there was 11 sales. I'm guesstimating here because they're all by a million different price points. So under $220,000, we've got about 100, just over 100 sales over $220,000 for the year out of 4,900
that's
sales.
Under 220,000?
Under 219,999. Yeah. Exactly.
Out of 4,900
Out
sales.
of 4,900
so
sales.
Perspective is important on that
That's
one.
right. So yeah, it's a tough price point, obviously.
Yeah. I think like we were just talking about, the perspective on that, it's, okay, is it possible? Sure. Like a lot of things are possible, right? But you also have to know what you're getting for that price. So homes that are classified as a residential sale, probably a number of those homes would end up being possibly a tear down, got job taking it down to the bare stud. So a lot of it depends on, the time and money you have to invest into something like that.
My suggestion would be to save up a little bit more because if you, just to give you an example, right? So we had about 100 sales under 220. There was 122 sales between 220 and 260. So double that in just that extra $40,000 bracket, right? And then 200 further sales between $260,000 and $300,000. So just by saving up a little bit more, you'll have a bit more buying power. It's not easy. It's possible to get, let's say under $300,000, Matt. Maybe that's, it's not easy, but it's more doable.
Yeah.
So I guess the question that everyone's going to ask us, Matt, is how are people doing it? Well, you have, maybe teaming up with family or friends to buy a property together. Right? It's a solution. Try to get creative.
So, sometimes we're in a different time, right? Like, whereas before, a lot of people could do that kind of thing on their own. You might be in a situation where maybe you have to get a co-signer. Maybe you have to get a gift from a family member. When it comes to a mortgage, if you have a family member, whether it's a parent or whatever, it doesn't matter. They give you that gift. You have to get a gift letter from them. The mortgage professional will need that, saying, okay, this is where the money came from, right? So there's creative solutions. You got to sometimes think outside of the box. Not saying it's easy, because it's definitely not, but there are ways to go about it.
There's B and lenders that aren't so, the rates aren't going to be as cheap, but I don't, again, as a human being, I don't like ever to suggest that someone has to jump on those bandwagons unless they really, really have to, because you're paying a lot in interest.
Yep.
Maybe it's, in that case, you have to just rent a bit longer or stay with parents or stay with family, and just save up a bit more before you start getting into those scenarios where you can only afford 150 in this market. That's nearly impossible. And to put you in a property that's not going to be desirable just because you want to get into something. Maybe it's worth saving up for an extra 6 to 12 months and changing that bracket a little bit more.
Yeah. And again, sometimes it might even be longer than that, right?
Yes. Whatever it takes. Yeah.
I think the important thing to keep in mind is that there are people who they look at the price point and they're looking at what prices were 5 years ago, and they're going, oh, I'll never pay this much for a house. Well, you could be stuck in that mindset. You could say that. You could say, well, maybe you won't, but then you may not ever buy a house, right? Because we've got to stay current with what's happening now. And you look at just on the world scene in general, you look at the way inflation has gone. This is not just local to Ontario. It's not local to Windsor, Essex.
Yes.
It's everywhere, right? So that's what you have to keep in mind. Stay current with what's happening.
And our prices, I'm sorry to say, are never going back to where they were.
No.
Right? No. They're going to, ebb and flow a little bit. They're going to dip a little bit and climb a little bit. But historically, look at all of the world tragedies and the tough times and that we've been through in the history of, of real estate. If you open that chart up and you zoom out really far out, it dips, but then it comes back up. And long term, it's always going up a hill, up a steep hill. And so over time, real estate prices are going to continue to climb. And yes, there might be a year or two where they come down a little bit, but when you zoom out of that chart, it's always going up. And so don't be so, nervous about, paying an extra $20,000 for that house if it's going to be your forever house. At the end of the day, it's going to make sense. What you have to be concerned yourself with is if you can afford it. That's a different situation, obviously, and that's getting harder and harder, as we know. A topic we've covered in depth here on the show. Now it's up to many people, the governments and whatnot, to try and find solutions to that question. We're out of time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah,
Flown by.
Yeah. Really quickly.
If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. Find us online at dangemis.com. And call our office 519-566-5565. And again, we're on the air every Saturday and Sunday from noon to 1. I'm back with you tomorrow. I think Aaron's on with me tomorrow. And if you have more questions, we're happy to tackle them live on the air as well. So, Matt, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Dan.
Enjoy the rest of the day and the weekend. And we will see you all tomorrow from noon to 1 right here on AM 800.